Righto, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On Loose Lines. A little bit differently, different football team and all. Nick Hooper, firstly, welcome to On Loose Lines and Campbell's Comments, mate.
Paul, thanks for having me. Great to be on.
As always, and anyone that knows you and I, this conversation could go for a little while. We're going to put a little cover note in straight away. Nick has to go to another function tonight. So it will not go any longer than an hour, but ideally I think it's about a half hour, 45-minute show. But what I want people to be able to do is to get involved in the show and by constructive comments as people put them in and get involved, because it's a sensitive little topic, the main one we're going to be bringing in up, Nick. So, yep, but I will read out any questions that people ask and fire at you. As long as they're done in the right and correct manner. If you're watching this on YouTube, please fire those in as well. Hopefully I can get it back to get to the live part, but we'll go from there. But we've got a few people. Robert Watson has joined in. I'm presuming that's the Robert Watson, but there could be a lot of Robert Watsons, so I don't know about that one, Nick. Anyway, a little bit of homework firstly. Harness Breeders Victoria, how's it all tracking, mate?
We're going well. Obviously, plenty going on at the moment with the Stallion Levy. We've got the Stallion Guide under production. We're looking at further breed to succeed work, plus all of the usual other minor matters that are always on the go. So there's plenty to keep the team busy.
Yep, which is really, really key. And there is. Now, onto the Stallion Guide very quickly. There is a competition. I've got all these photos ready. Desiree will tell me off otherwise. 6 horses there. We want these 6 horses voted for on the Facebook page, and they will become the banner for the Stallion Guide. There's a little kicker for this. People who share this post, any votes that are cast, all you have to do is put a thumbs up or a love heart next to the one that you like or the number. If they're put on a shared post, they will not be counted in the votes. The only ones that Desiree can count are the ones that go directly to the Harness Breeders Victoria. So if you see it on a share, just go into the Harness Breeders part of it and hit that part as a share, because that gets a lot of people confused, that part does. So we want to make sure that people can know where to go, know how to get involved in it and go from there. So that is one of the key components. The other one, very quickly, Nick, you're calling for extra committee people, I would imagine, is the best way to put it. Probably 2 like-minded people that are already a member of Harness Breeders Victoria to become onto the committee.
That's right. We've got 2 vacancies, Paul. We had one from the start of the season, but Mark Hughes has had to resign from the committee. He's just got too much going on in his life, and something had to give. We're very sad that it did, because Mark has been an excellent contributor to the committee and HBV over a number of years now. So thank you, Mark, for what you've done. But it does leave a couple of opportunities for our members to get involved. Come and get involved at the coalface and spend some time in some robust discussion with our committee and some good work being done. So any questions, come via myself or any other committee members that you know and put forward your expression of interest, and we'd love to have you on board.
And one thing I can say, and I can say this, Nick, in all honesty, that I think as far as committees and people prepared to think outside the square, if you like, you guys are well and truly that. Like, you try different things, you'll have a crack, and it's an exciting, I would imagine, an exciting committee to be a part of. I won't be joining up as a committee. I am a member, but I won't be signing on as a committee person, because I, like Husey, just have a little bit too much going on. But it's a lot of fun, and you guys do have fun. And that's one thing, behind the scenes, there's a lot of fun that goes on as well. So I think it'd be great for people that are keen on breeding and keen to take it to the next level.
Yeah, we do have a very good committee made up of committed people, some very talented people on the committee, a wide variety of people included, and we'd love to have a couple extra, especially with that, just if people are watching, younger breeders, we would welcome. If you're looking for an opportunity to get onto a committee and make a contribution, we're not going to throw you in the deep end straight away. Come on board, get a feel for it. But really, obviously, any members are welcome, but I encourage our younger members, come and get involved. Give it a crack. We'll look after you and make sure that you develop and grow and get benefit from the role.
No, absolutely. Got a lot of people watching. Umar says, "G'day." Eric Hendricks is on there, so we've got quite a few people. Michael Cole, Diane Kirkwood. Please, if you've got any questions, Peter Ramirio, he'll be waiting for Daniel Hibberd. He'll have to wait towards the end of the show. Daniel's going to join me on his way home from Bendigo Greyhounds. Okay, all seriousness. Probably one of the hot topics, if you like, at the minute, and I want to clarify where this show will be going tonight. We're here representing Harness Breeders Victoria. So the race in its, I suppose, the selling point of a lot of this is one of the conversations that's, I suppose, brought about this Stallion Levy, if you like, or Stallion Tax, Nick. The race for mine, and I don't know Nick's point of view, but for mine is not the discussion point necessarily tonight. Everyone in harness racing, I think, would love a $2 million race. I don't think that that's up for debate. I don't know your actual opinion, Nick.
That's right, and we've been very public, going on radio and also through written media, very supportive of the Eureka. I think it's a wonderful concept. We applaud HRA for making it happen. We're just not satisfied with one of the funding mechanisms with it. So be very clear, we think the Eureka is a great idea, and we give it all support, bar for one element.
Yep, and that element is the Stallion Levy. And this is, I suppose, I've sat back a little bit and I've watched quite a few things going on. The one thing we are discussing tonight is the Stallion Levy, not how, if this levy was implemented or not, as that the distribution of that funds, as some people are trying to put around. It's actually the levy that affects the breeders and members of the harness breeders fraternity in its entirety, Nick.
That's right. It's all we've had so far from HRA is a PowerPoint presentation from Andrew Kelly around about 6 weeks ago. We were promised at that time a copy of what would be the official amendments to the stud book, and as late as today, we're still waiting, and I'm told by Andrew that they are still working through them. I've got no doubt that they're working hard on them. I'll take Andrew on his word. But you would like to think that with the breeding season being upon us, that we would have visibility over exactly what these changes are going to be and not have quite a number of significant commercial decisions based around a PowerPoint presentation. I think it's quite poor of Harness Racing Australia in terms of A, the decision that they've made to impose this, but secondly, to now still be making the whole industry wait to see what this document is actually going to say when the breeding season is not far away. And the simple fact is that the studs don't make decisions a minute before the breeding season starts. They are making their decisions now. And an example of that, which has obviously got a HBV element, is we're trying to do the Stallion Guide, and we're now out there waiting for the studs to come to us with their advertisements. And I'm sure that they've got a decent idea as to who their stallions are going to be, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on us to produce the Stallion Guide because the studs are still trying to work out how they do their pricing. They can't do that until they've actually seen the actual document. And so whilst our Stallion Guide is not what this is all about, I just use that as a symptom of the disease. But HRA need to get themselves sorted out, because if they take too long, then I actually say to them, you need to put this off. You cannot take this forward too much further without giving us the information that we all need to make decisions. And it'll get to a point, and I'm saying that it's not months away, I'm saying that it's weeks and probably more likely days away, that if HRA can't get their act into gear and provide us with a copy of the stud book amendments, then they should, if they still want to go ahead with the Eureka, that's fine, but they then need to fund it themselves, because if they can't get themselves sorted out, it's not good enough.
I believe they should have to fund it themselves anyway, but that's a totally different thing, and I have to keep my parts separately. Before you say that it's a fundamental thing and it's not about the Stallion Guide, but it is actually about the Stallion Guide, because the Stallion Guide is a beautiful part of being able to advertise stallions and get people interested, plus products. Like I know there's other companies that are advertising through this, and they're going to want them out before August and September because they're spring sort of stuff and the likes. But it's not just a simple matter of once someone says, right, this is what the levy's going to be, people say, okay, so we'll just add that onto our service fees. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, studs included, that got to go back and have a look. And if you've only got one stud and one owner to deal with, that's going to be simple. But I would imagine for some of these bigger studs, this is going to be a minefield for them.
I think that you're right. For any stud that has stallions shuttling or frozen semen on the pacing side, if you're on the trotting side, at the moment it's happy days and you just do what you got to do. But if you're trying to understand exactly how this is going to work, you've got negotiations back with your owners, you've got to think about your cost position, you've got to think about your pricing mechanisms, you've got to think about how this is all going to fit into the market. Some of those things happen anyway for any stud at this time of year, in any event, when they work out where they're going to put themselves in the the various price brackets. But to not have the certainty of having the stud book amendment documents so that you can actually see the fine grain words to understand how it's all going to work. For example, I'm assuming the GST will actually need to be imposed on this levy as well. That's another thing that needs to come into it. There's lots of things that should be sorted out by now. It's fine that HRA have made a decision and let us all know, but then it's incumbent upon them to get on with it so that these decisions can be made. And if they can't get on with it and get this sorted, I don't know what they're doing. They're no doubt talking to their lawyers and trying to get this sorted out. But if there are legal issues associated with this, sort them out. Do it quickly, please, Andrew, is what we're saying to you. Give us a time frame so that people can have some certainty. And if you can't achieve a reasonable time frame, maybe you need to put it back 12 months.
Or, there'll be a few other people saying different things, but...
Well, that's... Of course, and I'm just dealing with the machinations of the world that we live in right at this minute. Then there's the merits of whether or not the Stallion Levy should be imposed or not, and the nexus between the Stallion Levy and the Eureka. And there are the majority of breeders, the vast majority of breeders don't support this. They see that this will increase their costs. And that will play itself out as we go. I think there's a very strong belief that is the case amongst the breeding fraternity. But the question is this going to mean that we have some stallions who don't reappear here because the numbers are crunched and it doesn't work? If that occurs, then that is a negative byproduct of what's going on. And as we've said a number of times, the levy puts at risk the objective to have access to the best stallions in the world and to have access to their best sons who are bred here. And HBV have been quite strong in saying that that's what our aims are. We want the best genetics in the world and we want to have their best sons when they retire here have every chance. And the evidence of that is the advocacy that we worked on with HRV to have changes to the VicBred program, where VicBred Pure was introduced. And for those that aren't familiar with what that is, it's basically the first win bonus, and that applies to Australasian stallions who physically stand in Victoria, and their progeny will race for $12,000 first win bonuses. All other stallions will be 9, and then there's the VicBred basic of 8 up on top of what is currently 7,000. We proposed and preferred the carrot approach to encourage breeders to give our local stallions the best chance of success, because we think that's important. But we don't agree with HRA's stick approach of whacking the shuttle and frozen semen stallions. And I've said this to Graham Campbell and Andrew Kelly, that in part we share the same objective. We just do not like your methodology because it is going to hurt the wrong people.
Is that one of the more frustrating parts from a HBV president, and what HBV and HRV have been able to grow, if you like, nurture and grow with the VicBred over the years? And I know a lot of people would say, we want it more and more and more, but it's not always that easy. But the exciting announcements you guys made last year that directly affect foals born this year on the ground, and would be the great flow-on effect from the next lot of breedings, if you like. You would have seen a better, is this going to work or not, because of whether the trend stays the same, goes upwards. Is that one of the, probably, I suppose, little frustrating parts you have as a president?
Look, it is, and bearing in mind Victoria is only part of Australia, and HRA covers the whole country. The Victorian breeding scene is the most significant portion nationally. The second most significant portion nationally is New South Wales, and they have some different but nonetheless very good incentives to encourage people to breed to the best of our racehorses that become stallions. Once again, Harness Racing New South Wales, using different methods, have got some excellent carrots out there to encourage breeders to breed to locally based stallions. And, Harness Racing New South Wales came out with some excellent announcements just the last week or so to assist breeders, and we applaud them. It's great. Up in Queensland, Racing Queensland have got some excellent first win bonuses. We have, in actual fact, probably for the first time in a long time, some real competition in the breeding side of things, which that puts pressure on Victoria, but it's excellent stuff as far as we're concerned, because it raises the bar and it makes breeding more attractive. So they're all very positive carrot approaches as far as we see them. We do not like the stick approach that HRA are imposing. We don't see that it's going to have a positive benefit. HRA are of the view that by combining it with the Eureka, that it will create a complete change in the attitude of buyers to Australian bred horses, that it will attract new buyers. I've said publicly a couple of times on radio and in other media that if that proves to be the case, then I will be the first to congratulate Graham Campbell as chair of HRA and Andrew Kelly as the CEO on their foresight. The simple fact is I and many others are very reluctant or reticent to say that that's going to be right. And if it does prove to be right, and we see that in the yearling sales prices because people think that they can acquire a horse that can win a Eureka, well, fantastic. But I'm just not sure it's going to happen. And it might only be a very small case in point, but you were over at the weanling sales in New Zealand, and if this was going to encourage people to buy Australian bred horses, we possibly would have seen a reluctance of Australian buyers to head over there and buy. But I may have my figures slightly wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, around about half of the weanlings that sold are coming across to Australia, which was an increase on previous years. And so if that's evidence of buyer behaviour based upon the Eureka, then it's not a very good start for the attitude that HRA are espousing. We hope that there could be lots of incentives to get Australian bred horses to be bought. That, of course, is a wonderful objective and is something that, given the state-based breeding schemes, a national breeding scheme that encouraged Australian bred horses would be fantastic. I just don't think that a Stallion Levy combined with the Eureka is likely to do that.
No, one of the things I will say about with New Zealand, the feedback from a lot of the New Zealanders, and I've got a few of them on hand here as well, Graham Hand and a few of those guys. One, they were a little bit head puzzled, if you like, by that. But for an industry to grow, we need to have interaction, if you like, with every jurisdiction that we can. We want to get the French trotters across here for a couple of these bigger races. Our closest neighbour and almost ally, if you like, is New Zealand. And as much as people would like to say we don't need New Zealand horses in our racing stock, I don't even know where the races are tonight, but I can tell you there'll be 20 New Zealand NZ horses going around minimum. They contribute so much to us. So to turn around and alienate the better ones from our better racing just seems ludicrous.
Well, at the moment it's only one race, and with my Australian and Victorian hat on, I have no issue with that. I couldn't see it occurring across the board. I don't think that would be wise. But I don't have a problem with a race or a small number of races being for Australian bred horses. Here in Victoria, we have horses for Vic bred horses. Well, you can be bred in New Zealand and be Vic bred, of course. So I don't have a problem with that as a basic premise. But no, you certainly wouldn't want to see it across the board. You want to attract horses from overseas to make sure that we have the right horse population. But I'd have no issue with the Eureka being for Australian bred horses. And in fact, from an Australian breeding perspective, if that is going to be successful, it might be because of that. And that's what HRA are saying. Whether that proves to be the case or not, who knows? And
then we tax breeders to fund this race. We've got Danny McKinnon just put a little one in there about So Tribeca. I'll get to that in a sec, Danny. That's a little bit of a curveball. But please, anyone that has questions, make sure you fire them into us, because as I said, Nick does have to go in about 15 minutes. So please don't wait too long for your questions. You said there before about being over at that weanling sale and the positivity in the breeding barn. They're up $4,000 on last year's sale. So that is one of the key components about the way that things are trending. Things are going in a positive manner, yet all of a sudden there is this dark cloud hanging over the top of us. I suppose, is it one of those things that seems to be a bit rushed, if you like, this levy, like you're saying that it needs to be dealt with now? Does it seem that it's a bit rushed, or is there a reason that it was rushed in?
Look, I don't know that it's been rushed, because it was first proposed 18 months ago and everyone said no. It was then shelved, and then there was some further simple consultation towards the end of last year, and then it's appeared in the Eureka concept. So, and I've got no doubt that as an idea, it's been around for quite some time. So I don't know that it's necessarily been rushed, but I would also say that I don't think it's been particularly well implemented for the reasons that I talked about at the start of this, that we still don't have the fine detail. So from that perspective, it's been around for a long time, and yet there is no detail available. The best we have is a presentation that Andrew Kelly gave us. The other thing as well, and I challenged Andrew and Graham on this, I said, where's your background research? Where's your economic assessment, your impact assessment of this? And the simple fact is, short of what they might have done and won't release internally, there was no external work done. There was no assessment done for the positives or the negatives, which I find quite amazing, that a board would have a level of governance that imposes something that looks to have a significant impact, or could have a significant impact. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll be proven right. But if it does have a significant impact, they're going to have egg on their face, because not only have they made a decision that they haven't researched properly, but if it doesn't work, how do you look people in the eye when service numbers drop off a cliff in the next year or two, or there are other ramifications that could have been predicted or researched? And then we have an even bigger problem. And that bigger problem is twofold. One, the overall racing population declines, which we can't afford. And secondly, the income that they will probably glean from this process to fund the Eureka will start to drop as well. And then what is their contingency plan? There is no contingency plan that I'm aware of. If there is, it hasn't been mentioned. There is no detail on that. But the simple fact is that the question has to be asked is, if it's not going to be funded by the breeders, how should it be funded? And the simple fact is that every other slot race already gives HRA the answer. The Phoenix with the Meadows, the New Zealand slot race, run by the Cambridge Club. Now, and I will admit that race clubs are slightly different to HRA in that race clubs do get a source of income from the betting turnover. And both of them have run the numbers and worked out that they think this is how it'll work. We'll be able to fund the gap between what the slot holders and sponsorship and everything comes in with. But that will be then, they ran their numbers, they checked it with the TABs, they said, yeah, those numbers should work from the turnover. You should get these distributions. So is HRA a club? No. But what is HRA? HRA is a collection of the states. And HRA, in my view, should be following the same methodology that those clubs have with their individual states funding that shortfall. Where would they fund that shortfall from? From the turnover that they are going to make on the race. that will come through in funding. And if that can't wipe its own face, then the whole concept has a problem. It's been shown that it can work elsewhere. Cambridge started with a conservative 900 grand, but I think that from what I've read, the numbers worked really well, and they're in a position going forward to conservatively raise that as they go forward, looking for continued growth in the concept. Each of the states should be putting their money in here. Now, I suspect that some of the smaller states who have equal voting rights at HRA quite possibly are too scared to do that because they simply don't have the money to do it. That's where New South Wales and Victoria need to step up. But this is where it speaks to the whole problem with the HRA setup, is that each state has 2 votes. And that means, with all respect to our friends in South Australia and Tasmania, they have as many votes as Victoria and New South Wales. And what does that mean? It sometimes means that you get lopsided voting arrangements. It's a little bit like I think the Senate in the United States. Every state's got 2 votes, and you get some states that are the size of, your backyard, Paul, and they get as many votes as Texas.
Yep.
So straight away, you can see that there are inequities in the way that these things work, and there are problems. And the states have basically, instead of taking on the responsibility of saying, we'll fund this gap out of the income that we will make out of the turnover on the race and the like, they basically said, no, we're not going to take that risk. We're going to put the risk onto the breeders. We're going to make the breeders pay for it, and we're going to take the risk that this isn't going to have an impact on the breeding industry. If they're right, as I've said, and I'll say it again, I'll be the first to pat them on the back. But the great risk is that this could have a deleterious effect on a hell of a lot of things.
Did the states, I suppose, discuss with you guys, or this was just all brought about prior to it? And I mean, you might not be able to answer that, but was it discussed with you guys? No, I can.
We, HRV, being a kindred body, HRV did ask for our opinion, and they offered,
Can I just ask before you just say one thing, is this prior to the announcement or after the announcement?
This is prior to the Eureka announcement. HRV, so back in May last year when the Stallion Levy came out, we advised them as to our view, and they wrote to HRA and said, nah, don't support. Then in about September, when it came up again, my understanding is HRV wrote to HRA, gave some, I believe, tentative support for the Eureka, but basically said that further consultation was needed on the Stallion Levy aspect before they could offer their support. I haven't seen that letter, but that's what I'm told that it says, so I'm happy to be corrected on that. Since then, we haven't been consulted. I'm not even sure that HRV have seen the detail because I don't know that the detail exists. And to the best of my knowledge, there has not been a formal decision of HRV on the Eureka and the Stallion Levy since they wrote those letters last year, which I'm quite amazed at in terms of the order of decision making and the way that works. And perhaps I've got small things wrong there, and so I'll take any feedback from HRV there. But I'm pretty sure that is what's occurred, and that HRV, I don't believe, actually has a formal position on the Eureka.
HRV don't have a formal, they're not for or against?
To my knowledge, they have not voted in a board meeting on the Eureka and its detail.
So that in itself has to be a bit of a worry, that they haven't, from a HRA point of view.
Well, I mean, again, the way that this all works, of course, is that Dale Monteith is the Victorian representative at HRA and has the 2 votes that Victoria hold. And to be fair to Dale, when he wanders into a HRA board meeting, he does so with a national view in mind. But I would think that for significant issues that he would like to be informed by his board as to what the board's view is on certain things. Now, if it was to do with the colour of the letterhead on HRA correspondence, I suspect that he doesn't need to go back to the HRV board to work out whether it should be blue or magenta. But on matters such as this, I don't know. Again, I'm making assumptions here, but I would have thought that if I was on the HRV board, I would like to have formed a firm view as to what the Victorian position was likely to be. Now, as we know, Racing Australia is a dysfunctional body, and I stress Racing Australia. Their states simply do not get along. They go along and vote on state lines and nothing happens, and the whole thing keeps on falling apart. So HRA do appear to be functioning and making decisions, which compared to Racing Australia, we should be grateful for that.
Yep.
But there will be always things that are of great importance to each individual state, and that sometimes you would expect your state representative to support your position when you so strongly viewed it. I mean, if this was 60% against and 40% in favour, well, I'd say, well, you've just got a difference of an opinion. But quite clearly, HBV has reported back to HRV and HRA that more than 90% of our feedback from our members was do not support. And that's pretty unequivocal. So we're disappointed that HRA has made the decision based upon our feedback, and to the best of my understanding, all of the other breeding associations have delivered similar feedback. And we're very disappointed that it was a unanimous vote, which meant that our view was not supported ultimately by HRV.
90% of HBV members. How many breeders in Victoria would not be a member of HBV?
Well, it's easier for me to tell you that our membership fluctuates between about at about 400. So we represent the lion's share of the breeders. There'll be some that don't, but 400 breeders is a substantial portion of the pool.
And 90% voted against it, and yet we still voted, well, when I say we, HRV, because I'm in Victoria, but the Harness Racing Victoria still voted for it.
Well, no, in actual fact, there has been no vote for HRV, but the HRV representative, Dale Monteith, voted for it. So we're disappointed at that disconnect between our advocacy and the HRV decision. I respect Dale's right to do that, and that's what he's meant to do. We're just disappointed that there has been that disconnect, and that we end up where we are at with the risks in place. As I say, if they're proven to be correct and this results in some wonderful positive impacts, I'll go and pat them all on the back and say well done. But we're not so certain.
I wasn't sure if the butt was going to stop just then or not. I could see you were still thinking. Nick, I've got a couple of questions, but you're the Harness Breeders Victoria president. You are a breeder as well, so you have a passion. But outside of that too, you have also been behind a very, very successful business. So as a businessman, a lot of what you say here tonight, you've got a fair backing in it. You've built that business up over a long period of time to be a very, very successful business.
Yeah, look, I don't know how relevant that is to.
I just in relation to understanding what goes on.
Look, obviously, I tried to be across as much of what's going on as I possibly can. I've got an excellent executive and committee that I can bounce ideas off, and we can debate and form views. So the views that I'm giving tonight, whilst they are definitely my own, they are also the views of my executive and committee, but also of our members.
Yeah, definitely. Danny McKinnon said there that interesting announcement tonight that Soho Tribeca is trialling at Maryborough on Sunday. He, of course, wouldn't come underneath any of the taxes anyway. He will just pay the $500 levy, which is not something new. Is that correct, Nick, that every year people have to pay to have a stay and stand? Is that correct or not?
They've paid the states in the past, and exactly what that amount is, I'm not sure. But now they'll pay HRA a flat $500 fee, which in the overall scheme of things is not a significant amount. Whether it's higher or lower than what they paid the states, I couldn't tell you because I've never had to register a stallion.
No, okay. I didn't know that part. I didn't know that. So it's going to HRA now, not HRV.
That's right.
Okay. Noel McNulty, what is the dollar in the tax going to be? And that's one of your questions. It is not being clarified in any way. Is that correct?
We know what the percentages are. It's 8% for a shuttle stallion and 15% for a frozen semen stallion. I stress it's only the pacing stallions at this point in time. None of the trotting stallions are impacted. And that is on top of the advertised service fee. So if a stallion has an advertised service fee of $10,000, to pick a nice round number, and they're a frozen semen stallion, the owner of that stallion, as I understand it, but haven't got the detail, but will receive a bill of Harness Racing Australia for $1,500, being 15%. In fact, it'll be plus GST, so it'll be a little bit more than $1,500. What's that? $1,650.
Your round figure just got very hard.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that's $1,650. But look, someone will tell me that whether I'm right or wrong there. But they'll get a bill for that amount, and that's based upon every foaling that occurs.
And that's one of the issues that a lot of people have, is one, they don't know that price and where they stand. And if you stand a stallion and I do you a good deed, if you like, and you say, rightio Paul, we'll just go halves in that service fee, you still have to pay, even though I might only pay $5,000. At the minute it appears the owner of the stallion still has to pay tax on the 10, or the levy. Sorry.
That's what it looks like. So one of the things that may well change this year, and we've in the past, there's always been an advertised service fee, but there have been many discounts, often of about 20%, that have been available to just about most, if not all, breeders. I think you'll find that those discounts will dry up for shuttle and frozen semen stallions. The reason being is that because the levy is charged on the advertised service fee, the studs, I would expect, are probably going to have to fix their prices like you do at the supermarket, and you basically pay what's on the ticket. Now, that'll mean that possibly that'll then play around with the way that they actually price their stallions. So you may actually find that that stallion last year might have been $10,000. You might have got it for $8,000, for argument's sake, with a 20% discount. You may well find that stallion this year is still $10,000. And you go, oh, nothing's changed. Well, it's when you wander in and say, Brett Coffey or Kath McIntosh or whoever, can I have a discount? The answer will be no. The price is $10,000. That's my thinking through what will probably occur. So the discounts will disappear. I don't know what it's going to mean for where the studs offer free services out to the clubs that the clubs use as a fundraiser. If it goes through that, HRA is still going to bill the owner of that stallion. If it is a shuttle or frozen semen stallion, they're still going to get billed whether it goes to a club or not. There's no exemption in that regard. So it's going to be interesting to see how many become available for the clubs. Maybe it will only be the locally based stallions who will become available because of the difficulty with the shuttling and frozen semen stallions.
And that is a worry. And you say there, like, how does this affect it? The clubs, and I know very shortly a lot of clubs will be approaching me to make sure they're aware of their stallion tenders they've got bought. They have a successful trotting one, so that one won't be affected, actually, as I think about it now. But Swan Hill, I think they can have up to 10, 13 horses in that stallion tender and the like. So they'll be sitting there as one of their main revenues, if you like, or a way of making money each year. Again, not knowing even if they're going to be able to have it.
Look, once again, there'll be plenty of stallions that are unaffected by the levy, and so it may well be that stud masters only make them available, which I don't know. That'll be a matter for them. But it's just something. It's an unintended consequence of the levy, and what will be the behaviours of the studs and the stallion owners in terms of how this is all going to work.
No, definitely.
Until I come back to what I said at the top of the show, until we see the fine print, no one really knows. I mean, in my day-to-day job, I'm a town planning consultant, and some people will have come across planning schemes where you get your permits and the like. When you do a planning scheme amendment, i.e. you change the zoning or the words in the planning scheme, when it goes on exhibition, all of the changes are clearly mapped out, often in a track changes type document. You know exactly what's occurring, and then you make your submissions on the detail. We don't have that. We don't have that track changes document. We keep asking for it, and I ask Andrew Kelly again, please release it immediately, if not sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say too, I was meant to say at the top of the show, I did put the offer for Andrew to come on as well. He declined, but I definitely went for the right channels that way. Gary Newton, Nick, how do we get this overturned once it's officially announced? Also, ST, that PowerPoint was based on advertised service fees, meaning studs will no longer offer discounts, which is exactly what we just spoke about. Sorry about that, Nick. I was reading it as we go. How did we get it overturned? Is there a way of getting it overturned, or is that one of those ones that we're working through at the minute?
Well, given that HRA claim that they've made a firm decision and they don't appear willing to change their mind, then there's only two things that can occur. One is a legal challenge, and we're not leading any legal challenges. I don't know whether any will occur. The second is continued advocacy at each state level of each state authority to basically express displeasure at the manner in which the Eureka is being funded. Now, whether that results in any change, I don't know. But at the end of the day, if it is going to proceed, then once again, all we can do is hold each authority and HRA to account as we get through the breeding season and see what's occurred to the breeding numbers. What are the ramifications? And HRA haven't described what their review mechanism is going to be. I did raise that as a question with Andrew when he made that presentation about 6 weeks ago. What is your review mechanism? How are you going to know? And what are you going to do if your decision is having negative impacts? And once again, I'd like to see HRA come out and take a responsible position on this and describe how they are going to time a review so that we can then have the opportunity to see whether or not the impacts are positive, as they think they will be, or negative, as we are concerned that they will be.
Robert Watson, how do we arrest the millions of dollars leaving Australian shores and lining the pockets of the US stallion owners? Isn't it just a tariff? Plenty of stallions to choose from without a levy. That gets back to a little bit of what we said at the start, Nick, that it's this tax and the levy, not so much towards the race.
Yeah, look, and part of the issue here, and Robert touches on it, is the view that a significant amount of our breeders' money ends up overseas with stallion owners overseas. And that is true, but only to an extent. And without, a Mark Hughes will do a far better job of this than I will, or one of the other, a Brett Coffey or someone like that, who understands exactly where every dollar goes and how many dollars actually end up back overseas. But so I take what they advise me. I'm not a stud master. I don't have visibility over their books. So my answer has to be taken in that context. But I'm led to believe that it is not the vast majority of money ends up back overseas. Money ends up with these studs here. There are there are many costs associated with standing the stallion here that have to be catered for. There is a portion that goes back overseas. Yes, that's absolutely true. But I don't see that is as significant as a problem as being made out, simply because if we want the best genetics in the world, then we have to have access to the best stallions in the world, which means that some of our money will go overseas. As much as we need a good racing product here with as many horses as we can, one of the things that I think is important is that we actually do have an export market for our product to go overseas, because that actually, the sale of our horses to international markets brings a hell of a lot of money back into our sport. The simple fact is that the North Americans tend to want to buy horses by stallions that they know, and they can also see that the genetics that we have had advancement in over the last 10 years in the pacing and especially the trotting show how good a quality our horses are. And so therefore it's not just money going in one direction. If we produce horses that can be sold to overseas, it means that we have an export market. We see that with the thoroughbreds, and we miss that into Asia. And you see it in their yearling sales results when Hong Kong and Singapore and other jurisdictions come buying our horses and paying inflated amounts so that they can get their horses to race over there. We don't have an Asian market to sell into. We're bound to effectively North America. The Europeans won't really buy our horses. Maybe they will, but the French won't because they've got a closed stud book.
Yep.
And it's a very important aspect of the overall economy is having horses that create that money back in. So we don't want money unnecessarily going over to stallion owners overseas, but to say that the vast majority of this money is going, I don't believe is correct. And I think that you've got to look at it more broadly than just that.
And I do know that it's tailors who are the stud owners of Lazarus, plus plenty of the others, are actually buying mares to send to these stallions that they've got over here so they can make a great name for themselves. So they are actually purchasing horses on both sides of the ditch to reinvest back into our product, which is what more or less what you're saying.
Therein lies one of the great ironies. Lazarus is counted as an Australasian product, yet he is owned overseas. Lazarus, if he stands here in Australia, will only attract the $500 fee, even though he's owned overseas. So all of the profits that Lazarus generates, and may he have a great stud career and generate them many profits. I'm not wishing them bad at all. But therein lies one of the ironies of this, is that I'm adding us with the Kiwis, they'll forgive me. The Kiwis produce a horse that is world class, that has the capability of shuttling back the other way, and we should be applauding that. That should be one of the great things. He's owned internationally.
Yep.
There will be stallions that come here that are that shuttle backwards and forwards to the United States, or are frozen semen stallions. Some of them will be owned locally, in part, and yet that's not seen either. It's just this view that all this money goes overseas. I don't buy it. It's being oversold is the issue.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. And I didn't actually think about Lazarus and Taylor's. I just know they've been purchasing. I think they purchased one. There was 63,000. It's one of the things that frustrates me a little bit. Is right at the minute the industry is very, very good. As far as Nutrien had an online sale, a couple of mares sold for really good money, $35,000, and I know Gavaleau sold one today for $63,000, which is terrific for the broodmare band and the positivity with our industry. Joe Pace, can we get the sports minister involved? I would imagine that someone has possibly done that. I don't know that though, but I would imagine that they have been contacted. I don't know the answer to that one, Nick.
The answer is yes. It's the racing minister, of course, Martin Pakula, and I have spoken to his chief of staff on the matter, and the minister is well aware of what's going on.
Okay. Danny McKinnon, will we see Soho Tribeca situations and have more Australian-bred stallions serving mares and continuing to race if the demand for Australian stallions increases? That already happens in Europe with the stallions. I think it was, is it Tomoko, won 2 elite lops, plus was standing horses serving mares at the age of 5. So I don't think that in itself is actually a worry. And in fact, I think it would probably grow the sport. There is a trotter whose name escapes me that won on Saturday night, won the Group 1 on Saturday night, trained by the Angos, that has been serving mares.
He stood mares on and off over a number of years. I think that's a commercial decision for the owners and the studs. Some of the studs like to retire their stallions on top and have their legacy nice and clear. Others, as you say, are happy to mix stud and race duties. That's a matter for the individual stud and the stallion owner.
David Flynn's pretty passionate here. Freedom of choice to breed to the best. If that includes overseas stallions, then let it be. Sorry, but there have been many Australian stallions that haven't made it. In the as also the USA, we just want to breed to the best. So that's David Flynn, and he's well and truly. Robert Watson says we should only be worrying about our own backyard. That's your opinion, Robert. You're entitled to that. I think a lot of the others. Why should the end user? This is Aaron Brown. Sorry. Why should the end user person paying the service fee fund a race less than 99.5% of the breeders will compete in. And that's pretty much the crux of a lot of the people's discussions, isn't it?
That's right. We've said the nexus between the levy and where it is being spent is tenuous at best. The link is, some would argue, non-existent. It's tenuous at best. HRA have announced that, and under that heading of tenuous, that $100,000 of the prize money will go in $10,000 lots to each of the breeders who get a horse that qualifies for the race. So there is something coming back for 10 lucky breeders each year. So from a breeding perspective, in that isolated element, we say well done to HRA. But again, it's a nice little bit of money for a very, very small number funded by the many.
Absolutely. I am going to let you go, Nick, but you and I had a discussion just recently, and one of the, I suppose, the lures of the race is to make it into a stallion making race, which I actually find quite funny with their pin-up horse at the minute being Catch a Wave, who is actually a gelding. So that is actually one little thing personally I find funny. But a stallion making race can't be made. You cannot make a stallion making race. The Caulfield Guineas is a stallion making race, but effectively it was a lead up to a lot of the better class races going through the spring. It just turned out that all of a sudden the horses that started winning that were stallions, and then that becomes now a stallion making race. Now the Caulfield Guineas is a very, very sought after race, especially for the stallions in the thoroughbreds. A race that I already think is there, and perhaps we should be marketing it. And it is a Victorian race, and a lot of people will probably disbelieve me, but the 4-year-old Bonanza, I'm going to go back to 2011, and I'll read these very quickly. Bitter Bliss won it in 2011. The Phantom, who is a gelding, in 12. Restrepo, 2013. Chili Palmer's a gelding in 2014, but he beat Guaranteed. Yankee Rockstar in 2015, and then Tactate in 2016. Again, another gelding, but it was only a Group 3 race. So already you've got horses like Rockstar, Restrepo, Bit of Bliss, Guaranteed, that have been doing a great job for us commercially wise here for their breeders and doing a good job there. It becomes a Group 1. You have Lazarus, Jillaby Kung Fu, Poster Boy, Lochinvar Art. 2021 we got Boots Electric, who was a gelding. That's okay. And then in 2022 we had Bondi Lockdown beat Beyond Delight. That's, to me, the race. It's not the best race for our summer carnivals and the likes, but from a stallion point of view, stallion making point of view, you'll go a long way to see a lot of those horses win it. Soho Trebek is a horse that's featured a little bit in our conversation tonight. Didn't win it. Doesn't mean that he won't make it as a stallion. But those horses then went from there. They go to the Chariots of Fire, and then potentially the Miracle Mile if they're good enough. But it can set a foundation up for them. And I think that's the one thing with the race. It's the one thing that it gets me, because you can't make a stallion making race. A stallion making race is something that happens.
Well, and so what I'm about to say is I'm not even sure that it's a personal view. I'll put it out there for people to have a think about and kick around and debate in the industry. I don't mind the idea of, and we'll just use the Bonanza as an example. I don't mind the idea of the Bonanza being restricted to 4-year-old stallions. Maybe it's 4 and 5-year-old stallions to make sure that you've got an adequate field. I don't have a problem with that. It might be trying to make a race that's not, but the evidence is, as you say, that there are a significant number of stallions in it. It could be a nice positive move to, again, do things to help our best sons have a successful breeding career, because at HBV we're all for that. So I'm not advocating that has to be the answer for the Bonanza, but I throw it out there for people to have a bit of a think about. Let's have a little bit of debate on the topic. Have a similar race for the Trotters, a 4 and 5-year-old, stallion race. You might only end up with half a dozen in the race, perhaps. But if they're the best stallions going around, and on the end of the prize was not only the prize money, but the kudos to be able to have a little bit of Caulfield Guineas about it. I think it's an idea worth thinking about and kicking around. I
will say too, if you want to go and watch anyone that's not in Victoria, go to thetrots.com.au. And you can see through the race series, the 4-year-old Bonanza is one of those races that features there. I did all my homework, and then I went to that, Nick. I was very annoyed. I was like, you can watch them, and there is some cracking races, Poster Boys and Lazarus especially, but there's some great races, and I think that's the other part about it. Nathan Rice, what potentially is preventing HBV, HB New South Wales or any other state that's against the levy creating separate legal entities from HRA to avoid the control over the matter? And I think that's what you guys, everyone's trying to stop. Back to what you said with trying to break away, I suppose, is what Nathan's suggesting, Nick. But potentially that's what we don't want to happen, because we don't want a Racing Australia model.
No, and the racing is only operates under state legislation. HRA only exists because each of the state bodies has come and agreed that it should exist to run the sport. There are arguably, as I pointed out earlier on, some flaws in the HRA setup, and that's a view that people may disagree with me on, and that's okay. But it's not possible to run proprietary racing, and otherwise we'd have to wind the clock back 100 years and pull John Wren out of his grave and get him to run the sport again. So that's, unfortunately not an option if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, and I hopefully I've portrayed it in the right manner that it was meant to be. Nick, I am going to let you go. I said we'd only be half hour, 40 minutes. As usual, you and I have gone for a little bit longer, but I do appreciate your time, because I think it's a very important matter. We're trying to do, I suppose, step away from that race point of view. We both agree a $2 million race would be sensational. We could both dream as breeders to having a horse as part of it. But for, I think both of us, I here representing Campbell's comments, but also take this hat off, and with my wife and daughter that breed 3 horses in a year, I agree with one of the gentlemen. We should be entitled to breed to whoever we want at the advertised service fee, with or without discounts, at our leisure, and not have to worry about taxes and I suppose being railroaded into going to something that perhaps we don't want to do.
No, well, thank you for having me on and the opportunity to speak on the topic once again on behalf of our committee and our members, and welcome any questions or feedback via our website, hbv.org.au. Only be too happy to help out our members if they have questions.
Jared Maloney right at the end, great informative gentleman. So he got a double whammy, Jared did, because Swan Hill and that stallion tender that will be coming up. Hopefully he'll be ringing me. Never know with this world, Nick. I will let you go, mate. Thank you. You've got to cook tea. You haven't got as long to cook tea now, but I do really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me. And as
how long does it take to microwave a pie these days?
I don't know. No, they take longer than you think. They're
by the way, that photo that you've got in this advert for this this show, there's the hat. But I'm going to have to get you to. I'll have to get you a more recent photo than that one.
I have actually got one. It was when I saw that one, I thought, I can see a bit of fun in this. So I had to.
That's back when I had hair. But anyway.
We're not going on hair jokes. I can promise you. I can promise you that one. Do you know it's very off-putting? I have 2 different cameras. The one that I'm watching you on, the link that you and I have on, it's actually reversed. So I keep thinking my hat's on backwards, which I have done before, but it's actually not. So it is all good, but it's actually quite off-putting. Nick, thank you very much, mate. We could talk forever, but good luck heating up the pie. Thanks for joining me. Well done with Saliqua too. Not Saliqua, but the daughter of Saliqua, which I was practicing all day because I thought you were going to ask me how to pronounce it. So that's why I came out with that one.
It's very easy. Aureus.
I forgot about that horse, but it was the daughter of Saliqua, which, might have been a running joke between you and I. But no, well done.
Thank you. No, really thrilled with the way she's going. So a lot to look forward to there.
No, thank you very much, Nick Cooper.
Cheers, mate.
Woodland Stud takes pride in their involvement in the industry, both on and off the track, supporting harness racing through sponsorship from grassroots to feature racing, giving breeders access to world-class stallions who go on to produce world-class racehorses, selling progeny at sales from some of Australasia's strongest families, Harness racing is our passion, and we will continue to strive for greatness. Your success is our success. Share the dream with Woodland Stud.
Right, we are back, and I apologise, Rob Watson and Dave Flynn, because Nick Hooper has actually left us. So hopefully Nick might be able to see both those questions. He might get back to you. But what about if none of the studs pass on the costs on and they absorb all costs? No one has considered that. I can't answer that one. Sorry, Robert. And yep, David Flynn has concerns about when they go to the yearling sales. And I think this is one of the things, I appreciate everyone's feedback. I did say that Nick had to go. I'm sure we could have kept this going for a lot longer. And it might be something that I'll revisit again shortly at some stage. Sorry, I was going to take the cowboy hat off, but it actually doesn't matter. I can actually leave that one on. I am actually going to get a few of the Daniel Hibberd to join me as we go. So just got a little bit going on, but hopefully people enjoyed it. Campbell's comments, I try to do things a little bit differently and try to get people involved on Loose Lines every Wednesday night for the next 5 weeks. Will be run similarly. I'll have some few topics as of next week, and we can go from there. And I do apologise, my feed has been a little bit behind, but we're back up to it now. Not sure what happened then, so that might be why. Sorry, Rob Watson and Dave Flynn. Looked like my feed was a bit out of time, so didn't come up quite quick enough, those last couple of questions. But Campbell's comments, wanted to start doing things a little bit differently, and I suppose continue to evolve and grow, change the show. So for the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks now, through the winter months, I am going to be doing as many of those as I can. Daniel Hibberd joins me online on the road. Daniel, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Paul.
Did you catch any of the Nick Hooper interview at all?
I did catch a bit between races, so I was able to get a bit of an idea of what was going on. I didn't hear all of it, but it's a pretty emotive topic. So it's clear that the breeding part of the industry is really keen to make sure that they're looked after, and you know, if something is going to be against them, it's clear that they're going to stand up and stand up for what they believe in their part of the industry.
Yep, absolutely. And the worrying thing for me was the timeline, as Nick did allude to there, that he does have a bit of a worry around the timeline and when it's going to be coming out, which I think is very, very important to participants. You and I are going to get back.
I was just going to say there are a few things with timeline sort of stuff, and it's not in different areas as well. I've seen it happen a couple of times in footy things and cricket things as well, where stuff gets introduced at the very last minute and it never ends well.
No.
So if this is going to get introduced as it is right before the start of the breeding season, it's not going to end.
No, definitely not. You might be. Whereabouts are you, near Gurunong?
No, just coming out of Huntly.
Oh yeah, no, we might lose Daniel. Don't worry about that. Anyone that's not sure exactly where we are, Daniel. One thing I do want to talk to you, a couple of things very, very quickly, but a couple of the awards last over the week for the Trots Club Victoria. Got I suppose a soft spot for you in a way for Shepparton Harness Racing Club. One pacing for Pink was the best sports event for the 20 through to 2022 country club event of the year. So something that you, Toby McKinnon, and quite a few other people have had a great hand in building. So I know Donna Hassels rang me and reminded me of that. I've got the pictures up there on the screen. But the other one, and I'm sure means a lot more to you with your association with the Shepparton Harness Racing Club, but the Frank Ryan Memorial Club Employee of the Year, which is actually for 2 years, going to Colleen Boynton. It's just huge for what Colleen does behind the scenes. She's just a terrific and tireless worker.
She never stops.
No.
It's she does stuff that, the small stuff that needs to be done, the shitty jobs basically. but she just gets in there and does them, and that never makes a fuss. And just make sure that everything's right on the night for big events and small events and trials and all that sort of stuff. She's always there and thoroughly well deserved.
And what we see as a harness point of view with every race meeting, like Donna said, there's weddings on, there's private functions on all the time, and she just seems to be always going. So, yeah, a lovely, lovely lady. I know her personally. She's been a friend for too long. Neither of us would like to admit how long we've been friends for. And I just think it's just huge for her. And well done to the Shepparton Harness Racing Club. And Macca, I'm sure he would have walked away from there pretty chuffed with the Trots Club Victoria Awards. 2 of those, and 2 richly deserved ones. I think well done to them for both.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into the big day. I mean, it was big and up and top, and it sort of run its course, I guess you could say, because of the size it was getting to. The movement to Shep, for Macca to sort of take it on with Marg and Donna and all the team down there. They've made it more of a corporate thing as well, with the dinner and all the lunch upstairs, all the raffles and things like that. So it's just gone from, it's huge. It's a massive thing now. It's not just a one-day thing. It's basically a whole month thing now.
Yep, no, definitely, and it's going terrific. And Donna told me, and I was doing a few things, and she knew that. I think something like $11,000 from Club Menangle. I think it was $200 every female driver, trainer that won, and then the pink pants. So well done to them as well, getting involved. All the states got involved. I'll try and get a bit of a recap. That might be what I'll do next week. Daniel, I'll get a few of the people involved in the pacing for pinking and get a little bit of the figures and that behind it. So that might be my chat next week, and we'll see how we go. Going from there, Juanita Breen is on. She's having a terrific run. There was one other one I wanted to bring up with you, Daniel. I can't find what it is. You won't be aware of this, but today Albuquerque, which was once a horse that raced here in Victoria, but this was definitely not it. Gavel House today, $63,000 for the Bettor's Delight mare, and I believe she's coming back here to Australia. But congratulations, great figures for a mare, mate.
That's a lot of money for a mare.
It is indeed. 63,000. It's there is a lot going on there. And one other, I haven't got my cowboy hat on, but very quickly, Euroby complete dispersal sale coming up. There's 108 lots featuring broodmares, weanlings, and racing age stock. Contact Mark Barton in relation to that. 0419 488 256. We're going to be there for an open day, Daniel. I'm going to be there on the Sunday, the 19th. We'll be going live, so we'll be showcasing as much of that as we can. And then it'll be an online sale the week after. So that's the complete dispersal sale of Euroby's broodmares, weanlings, and racing age stock going on. So keep up to date with Nutrien. I just flicked back to that screen, mate, and you're staring at me very funny, but you weren't talking, and now I know why, because it's only a picture. So does throw me out a little bit. You look a little bit grumpy, mate. Has it got anything to do with Melbourne at all?
Yeah, next topic, please.
No, I quite like that one.
I don't know what to make of it. It feels really fine for a club like Melbourne. I mean, we used to find wide the cheap boards, and there you got blokes getting drunk and belting each other up. It sounds like we're Collingwood.
And now they're the best of mates.
Well, apparently. I've got to ask you the big question.
Oh, no, I didn't. No. So Charlton Harness Racing Club, make sure you go and become a member of the Charlton Harness Racing Facebook page. Keep up to date. You miss out on the latest tipping contest, which is not a bad thing. If you have missed out, it probably would have been better if I had missed out, I must say. But yeah, they've got a great tipping contest that's going on for this month. So a little bit of fun, or a lot of fun. The week before, the duck egg that I got the week before, Daniel, I was actually busy, so I'll be honest, I didn't put any tips in. I may have got the same figure this week, and yeah, I did put some tips in, and zero results again.
Well, I'm in good shape, I think.
Well,
I had a $5 winner at Mildura, And then I had upright at Shepparton last night. We paid about $10, so God bless it.
Oh, well, little Mac Cheddar would have got me on the board. That didn't happen, and I went for some value, and that didn't happen. And fair to say, Andrea Gorman, I reckon you might want to do a spell check there. So, or maybe she meant that. She's come out, Daniel, with this week's dick egg was legit. So, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was meant. It's a G-rated show. It's okay, but no, it's a lot of fun what the guys at Charlton do, I must say.
It is, and I had a look at the leaderboard there, and there's a lot of new names and all the old names that were sort of my vintage when I was sort of around the club. So it's good to see that they've spread the net and got a lot of people involved.
Nah, definitely. The Trots are on tonight, mate. I haven't been watching them and all the rest. How's the Greyhounds? Any Greyhound news while I've got you before you get to Gurren?
We've got the Pink Diamond starting up tomorrow, but heat Thursday and Friday. And I get to call the finals again like I did last year. So looking forward to that. It's a Ballarat this year, but some ripper heats in the champion spreader across the 4 tracks Thursday and Friday. Looking forward to them.
Yeah, definitely. Andrea Gorman said she's cooking tea. Obviously, she's got big thumbs. The I and the O are technically side by side, so I will give her that one. Geordie Leader, mate, if you're still there, young man, doing a great job, had a great week, a great night at Mildura, and he just seems to be riding the crest of a wave ever since.
He's just driving everything brilliantly and winning races with ease, and it's really good to see. And when you get in that sort of form, you just want to keep it. You just got to, trainers have just got to put him on, and you know you're going to get a good ride out of him.
Yep, and he got another one winner at least. I'm just very, very quickly going through Ararat as we speak, but got one winner. Muckenbar Diva, Justin Lane. He's no longer on the committee at the Horsham. I don't think he's on the. He used to be president, but he might be still on the committee. I better be careful. But she's having a good run with that little mare. She's there's nothing to her, but he's having a lot of fun with her.
Yeah, that was a really good win today. It was I think Dan Malinga made his best bet of the day, and it paid $6.40. So no one wanted to back it on the tote, but she was too good. Yeah,
well, Dan knows. That's one thing about it. There's he's very, very, very good at his tips there as well. Jackie Barker may have had a double, I think, also.
She did, I think.
And Karen Manning's had a double as well. So. Jackie won the first and the second last with Johnny Redcoat. Wagga, one other one I had to do for the promotion actually was the Riverina Awards night. That closes on Friday night, $75 a ticket. It's a special night coming up, Greg Gangle and the likes. So it's a Riverina Awards night presented for clubs Albury, Junee, Leeton, South Wales, West and Riverina Associates, Wagga, West Wyalong and Young. So if you're anywhere near those clubs, make sure you get in touch with Greg. Tickets are on sale until Friday. Alan Hull is a special guest too, so don't forget that one there as well. Sorry, Daniel. And that's all of the, I suppose, little things I wanted to get out there and all the rest. Any observations from yourself for the week?
Well, did you want a traffic report or not?
Is it no good?
No, it's good. No, it's clean run. There's no traffic about it. That's good.
Don't speed through the railway crossing, will you?
I've already gone past that, and I already set the cruise to 80, so I'm never going to get a ticket there. I'm worried I'll get one through Gornong, but I'm going pretty slow.
Once you get through Gurrenong, our conversation is well and truly over. Anyone wants to know where he is, you can get on the sat navs and just see it. But the greatest dead spot within 40 minutes of Bendigo, I guarantee he won't be able to talk, or if he does, we won't be able to see him. On loose lines, mate, as I said, I just want to probably change it up through the winter months and come out as best I can, either Wednesdays or Thursdays at 6 o'clock. But I'm going to continue to do these. I want to try and do a few more with yourself as well. We might even do a greyhound night or a lead into the Pink Diamond, but going forward, mate. But we're going to continue to do that and look forward to it. You've been calling a few trot races too. You had a day out at Maryborough the other day, I heard.
Yeah, it was a bit of a late notice thing. I was driving down to Sandown last Thursday and got the call Lockie had pulled out of Kilmore on the Wednesday because he was crook. And then Malecki was down to do the dogs at Healesville.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a muck around with sort of all that. So that was the meeting he was actually rostered to do. And in the end, I had to go to Maryborough and Dan did Healesville and Geelong Dogs.
It's a huge effort. I don't know exactly how many races there were, but when I said Troy Harley, our greyhound correspondent, if you like, he's just like, wow. It was a late night because Geelong was a late meeting too, so it would have been an 11 o'clock finish, and he had the early bird with the Healesville meeting.
Yeah, I mean, a big day for him, and that was the thing. We were really struggling for callers. It wasn't, it wasn't through no one's fault. I mean, Lockie got sick, and then a few of the other guys were away or sick, so we were really struggling for numbers, and logistically it was just easy for me to go to Maryborough and do that meeting.
Yep, and go from there. Nah, it's all good. It was a bit of fun, mate, so it was good to hear you calling the trots. I know they're your first love indeed. So that's about all I've got. I don't think there was a lot of controversy during the week or a lot to talk about. I will be doing one with us potentially marketing with participants, if you like, in the next few weeks. Stacey Towers has reached out to me, so I'd like to do one with those sort of guys at different ways that we can think about our industry and promote it in a different light as well.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I'm gonna give you a night off as well, mate. Marupna at Shep on Sunday night, so Macca will be busy. Going from there, just quickly having a look at Melton and the likes, but it's a bit hard this time of season. I will say the racing in Queensland's sensational though, isn't it? Standing start pacing races, 31,000. How good?
Why don't we have that down here?
Yeah, we won't go there, will we? We'll just leave that
No,
one.
we'll be here all night.
We'll be here all night, and you're going to go. Daniel, thanks for joining me, mate. It's a little bit later and a little bit more ad hoc than normal, but that's the way Campbell's Comments rolls. But I must say, huge thank you to Nick Hooper for joining me and putting the Harness Breeders Victoria point across. Hopefully it's made a few people sit up and watch and potentially listen. I'll have to catch up with Mick Stanley and find out. I presume Mick Stanley's training Soho Tribeca, but I'll give him a phone call and do an interview with him at some stage and see what is actually going on. But Daniel, thank you very much for joining me again on Loose Lines. This has been a wrap. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, mate, and thanks for everyone for watching and getting a part of it. It's a wrap for one more week of On Loose Lines.